Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another week of zooming into the Parsha. And this is a big Parsha. It's Parshas Chazak. This is Vayechi, the last Parsha in Sefer Bereshis. I mentioned in Shul on Shabbos that the purpose of all of the stories in Sefer Bereshis, in this beautiful book that Hashem has given us, is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to learn very important and eternal lessons from the lives of our forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and it concludes with the life of Yaakov and Yosef HaTzadik, and the way in which they lived their lives, their midos, their character traits, their amunah, their belief, their bitachon, their trust in Hashem, their never wavering faith that they had, in the way in which they approached every situation in life. You see, Yosef is pulled out from the pit, and automatically he starts speaking about none other than Hashem. He's standing in the presence of the biggest, most powerful king in the world. And yet Yosef feels that he's coursing through his veins. His amunah, his faith, coursing through his heart and his soul is his connection with Hashem. And we see the way that he dealt with everything and the way he did it with such mastery. And really, every one of these stories that we find in Sefer Bereshis, it's all to teach us. It's to teach us this derech chaim, this pathway of life. That if a person is sensitive to the teachings, and we listen carefully to the messages, and we try to find a way to relate it to our lives, so then when this Shabbos is over and we make a siyum, so to speak, a conclusion on Sefer Bereshis, and we begin the next book, which is going to be Shmos, which is going to be a whole new era in the history of the Jewish people, so we can confidently say that we take with us the many weeks of learning together and the many weeks of going through the Parsha, and hopefully the many deep and profound insights and messages, not just that we learned in this class, but even when you learn on your own, and you listen to another shiur, or you attend another lecture, or you read the Mefarshim, the commentators yourself, or you just read the verse, and you think to yourself, what exactly is Hashem trying to say in His Torah? And you find a relationship to you, that itself is the reason of learning. That's the reason why we review the Torah every single year. Whether you are 3 years old, or you are 33 years old, or you're 103 years old, we review the same portions every single year. Because every year a person is in a different place in their lives. Every year a person's mind is hopefully became a little bit wiser. Their heart opened up a little bit more. Their challenges or their successes in life allows them to relate to the Torah and the people and the personalities differently than last year. And therefore, every year we go through it again, and it's all b'hischatshus. It's all brand new for us. And so this week, Parshas Vayechi, the last in the Parshas of Bereshis, which is the end of the life of Yaakov Avinu, the end of the life really of the era of the Jewish people as they had left Eretz Canaan. They come into Mitzrayim, and this will be the beginning of the exile of the Jewish people, as we will see next week. But there is, in this week's Parsha, one of the most famous aspects comes up in the fourth aliyah, the fourth part, which is known as Birchas Yaakov. It is the blessings that Yaakov Avinu gives over to his children, to the 10 tribes, Yosef and all of his brothers. And Yaakov Avinu is not a stranger to brachas, to blessings. As we learned together that when it was time to receive the blessings from his father Yitzchak, Yaakov Avinu went and he did all of his charade over here to be able to make sure that he procured the blessings for himself. And he was blessed with tremendous siyata d'shemaya, heavenly assistance. He was blessed with all of the heavenly abundance and that which would come down here on earth. He was blessed with the wisdom, with the foresight, with the power, with the courage that Yaakov would need to be able to carry the Jewish people on his shoulders for all generations. So Yaakov is certainly aware of how important and how valuable a bracha from your elders, a bracha from your father, from your grandfather, a bracha from the great leaders of the generation. Certainly, he was well informed on the power and the potency of a bracha that was given over with the right words, with the right intention, and given to the right person. And so here he is, the father of all of the Jewish people. He is the only man that we find in the Torah. All of his children turned out to be 100% tzaddikim. All of his children followed in the pathways of their father Yaakov. Yaakov is known as the midah of emes, of truth. Emes is Aleph, Mem, Taf. Aleph is the first word in the alphabet. Taf is the last word in the alphabet. Mem is the middle word in the alphabet. His children, everybody was in the path. They were going right down the middle. Yashar, they were straight, the way that it's supposed to be. And so Yaakov Avinu is surrounded on his deathbed by his beautiful children. And he is about to impart to them the eternal blessings that are going to be recorded inside of the Chumash. And they will be the blessings that his children and their offspring will live on for all generations. And so it's very difficult to understand that if you go through a number of the blessings that Yaakov is imparting to his children, they seem the farthest thing from a blessing or from praise or from a kind word or wishing that the abundance of the heavens should fall down upon them and their family. Rather, many of the words that Yaakov shares with his children as they are coming in for that final moment to bask in the glory of their father before he departs to another world, he actually seems to be criticizing them, some of them quite harshly. And instead of blessing them with all good things, he ends up pointing out their shortcomings. He ends up bringing back experiences and situations that took place years before that he feels they made a mistake in. And his parting words of the loving father, Yaakov, who cares with all of his heart about his children and their success and their leadership for the next generation, is a message of rebuke, a message of criticism, a message of emes, of truth, in which he is telling his children, you've got this issue going on inside of you. If you want to carry the mantle of my legacy down to your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, until all the generations of the Jewish people will inhabit this world, you better make sure that you correct this issue that you have in your life. Quite strong words when we call this Birchas Yaakov, the blessings of Yaakov Avinu. Where is the bracha in rebuking your child? Where is the bracha in the, I guess we'll call it the criticism, or as we say in the world today, the constructive criticism that he is giving to his children? Today, if a father would try to pull this off on his deathbed, and he would end up what sounds like he's lacing into his kids, so they would probably call the parent-children services, and they would end up telling this father that he has no right. How dare you tell your child what is wrong with them? How dare you criticize them at the end of your life like that? Who do you think you are, Yaakov Avinu? So what does it mean that Yaakov over here ends up giving over these words? And these are the words of bracha. These are the words of blessing. In the Sefer Mishlei by Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, the whole Sefer is about a person correcting themselves, a person being aware of their shortcomings and their faults, and listening to the Mussar, to the words of corrective measures that are necessary in order for that person to become a better Jew, a better Oved Hashem, a servant of God, someone that is going to raise himself up from the lowlier levels to the levels of righteousness. The whole Sefer is one pasuk, one verse after another, opening our eyes and our hearts more to understand just how great we possibly could become. And one of the topics of conversation that comes up quite a few times in the 20 some odd chapters of Mishlei is the concept of teichacha, which loosely translated means rebuke. I'm going to pick out a few of those verses today. There's more. We don't have time for everything. But I want to share with you a few of the verses just to understand what we are dealing with. The verse says, Al teichach letz. Do not rebuke. Do not instruct a mocking individual, a scoffer. Pen yisnaeka, because he might actually come to despise you and hate you. However, hoichach lechacham, rebuke a wise person, v'yehaveka, and that person that you just rebuked, that you criticized, that you tried to show them perhaps they have to make some changes in their life, they will come to love you and they will appreciate you. And for the rest of your life, they will thank you for the rebuke that you gave them because they understand it was a pivotal moment in their life when they took that. Says Shlomo HaMelech, two things. If you rebuke the wrong person, someone who likes to mock and to scoff and the like, he'll end up coming to hate you. You just can't handle such words. But if you find a chacham, you find a person of wisdom, you find a person who appreciates this sensitivity that you've had to share with them share with you what he thinks you need to work on, that person will come to love you. So one person will hate you and the other person will love you. A person who desires to change, a person who wants to become better, a person who wants to elevate himself, if you are the conduit in this world that will point that out to me, then I love you. I cannot thank you enough for your words. But if I am comfortable just going along in the pathways that I am, and I just will continue to do whatever it is that I do on a daily basis, no one's going to tell me what to do. If you come along and you hint to me, or you tell me explicitly what you think I need to work on, I will come to despise you and to hate you. I'm not interested in hearing what it is that you have to say. Says the Ibn Ezra on these words over here. And he writes the following. Ki uchacham be'einav, eletz, a scoffer, a silly person, is a chacham be'einav, in his own eyes. He's the wisest of all men. He thinks he knows it all. He got it all figured out. And there were people called the Vilna Gaon in the world. They themselves wrote a whole commentary on Mishlei. I don't need the commentary of the Vilna Gaon. Shlomo HaMelech, he needed to write a book called Mishlei. He had to write a book called Koheles. He was the wisest of all men. What else can he do with his wisdom? But a scoffer, a person who doesn't take this seriously, he is chacham be'einav. He's a wise man in his eyes, not in the eyes of other people. But he is a chacham, he is a wise man in his eyes, and therefore you are going to tell me what to do. You are going to try to correct me. You are going to suggest to me that there's something wrong with me and I need to work on this and make myself better. Says the Ibn Ezra, I'm a chacham be'enov. I'm a wise man. I know it all already. I'll take care of myself. I don't need your input. And therefore he'll come to hate you because he's very perturbed that you are even insinuating or you are suggesting, and if you're explicit, then you're really going to be on the hate list. If you explicitly tell this person, I think that maybe you want to work on this thing. He says, nobody tells me. I'm the chacham. I'm the one, be'einav, in my own eyes, that I'm a wise man. However, if you give rebuke to a wise person, he's going to love you. Why is he going to love you? He's already wise. He's already got wisdom. He's already worked on himself. He's already growing. He's open to these things. Why is he going to love you? Because this man looks at the purpose of his life as being someone that was brought into the world to be mesakin midaisav, to correct himself, to fix himself up, to become better. I don't think of myself as a chacham, as a wise man. I don't think that I'm Mr. Know-it-all. I don't believe that I understand the things that I do and the recesses that are working inside of my subconscious that get me to do this and X, Y, and Z. And therefore, if somebody is coming in an objective way and he shares with me his perception of my essence, he shares with me his take on my midos, on my character, he comes and he evaluates my psyche, or he evaluates what it is that he feels that I really need to work on to become a better person, I'm all ears. I'm ready to listen to everything that you have to say, because my purpose in this world is to grow. And sometimes we are so narrow in our view of ourselves, we cannot see past our nose. It's too big anyway to see past. So we can't see what is going on inside of our lives. We're not honest enough to recognize our faults. And therefore, somebody else wants to come along right now and share his impression of me. I am so excited to hear what you have to say. You found something wrong? You found an area of my life that I could correct and become better in? I would like to thank you with all my heart. And I love you for that. And therefore, says the Ibn Ezra, these two people are exact opposites. One person, a letz, a scoffer, a mocker. He already feels that he has all of the wisdom that he needs to have right up here. Nobody is going to tell me how to live my life. No one's going to tell me what's wrong with me. I know it all. That man will not grow. And if you try to get him to grow, he'll hate you. And the more that you suggest, the more he's going to hate you. However, a chacham, a wise person. Now we could be talking about great Talmidei Chachamim, great Torah scholars in this world. We could be talking about people that have a strong desire, a burning desire to understand what wisdom is really all about. And therefore, these people, when they hear that there is somebody out there that has an insight into their lives and into their personality and their essence, that the person in my subjective nature, my biased nature, I simply don't have, I am all ears, my heart is and soul are wide open, and I cannot stop thanking you as a result for what you have done. Because if you're going to help to make me a better person, and the reason I'm in this world is to become a better person every day, a person should lay down in bed at night and start reviewing the daily events which transpired, and they should ask themselves, did I become a better person today than I was the day before? And perhaps you'll have enough courage to say to yourself, well, what's the plan of action for tomorrow? I should become a better person tomorrow than I was today. And sometimes we are so narrow-minded we cannot see what we are lacking in and where we are weak in, and therefore we don't know what to work on. So graciously we accept the advice and the direction, and we accept the words of criticism from somebody else, as long as we hope that they care about us. And therefore they will come and they will help us to rectify and to change ourselves. That is what the Ibn Ezra says on these words over here of King Solomon, of why teichacha is such a valuable thing in a person's life. Years and years ago, when we were making the bris for my third son, Yeshaya Aaron, so I decided that we made it in the yeshiva, and I had the opportunity to darshan, to give a drasha. It was in much earlier days of my life when I didn't have a shul and I didn't have Zoom to darshan all day long and all night. So whether you want to listen, you don't want to listen, it's up to you, but at least I have the form that I can darshan as much as I want. But in the early days, before, when I was still learning in Kollel, so I treasured those moments when I would have the opportunity to get up in public and give drushes. And it was my son's bris, and I decided that I would give a drasha that nobody would ever forget. And it turns out at the end of the drasha, I would never forget that drasha either. My son's name is Yeshaya Aaron. Aaron HaKohen, man of peace, runs after peace, chases after peace. Makar when the Torah brings people close to the Torah as a result. Beautiful, beautiful message. Yeshaya Hanavi, the prophet Isaiah, he was a major force in the Jewish people, and his life was lacing in with very heavy Mussar rebuke to his nation, trying to get them to correct their erroneous ways of Avodas Hashem. So I found a verse in the Navi Yeshaya, which I felt was extremely important, that as I was a young man, I don't even remember, maybe I was just 30 years old at the time, standing up in a room filled with elderly tzaddikim and talmidei chachamim, standing up in a room with the majority of everyone that was there was learning in kollel at the time, or they were learning in yeshiva. Most of them wiser, older, and greater sages than I was. I decided it was very necessary to stand up in front of that crowd and give a drasha as if I was a Rosh Hashiva myself, giving Mussar to people that were there in that room. And I quoted a verse in Yeshaya that speaks about the idea of mitzvahs anashim melumada, that unfortunately Hashem is not happy when we do mitzvahs by rote and by habit. And the Malbim has a whole drasha over there, what exactly that means. And I got very excited during my drasha. And I said that unfortunately, if we examine ourselves, we will see that we are a bunch of black-hatted robots. That was my sharp line that I said by the bris. That line cost me a lot of pain. Because after it was over, I had my fan club who thought, yeah, you gave it to them. You told them, well, black-hatted robots, that's right. But 99% of the people that were there inside of that room felt that I was out of line. And it was a chutzpah to say such a thing. And one of my friends came over to me a few days after the bris. I was still gloating over my great drasha. And he said to me, can I talk to you? I said, sure. He said, how'd you get up there and call all of us black-hatted robots? I said, I'm just telling the truth. What's the problem? He said, you know, the Rosh Hashiva was in the room, and the Mashgiach was in the room, and the Rebbe was in the room, and all these great people. How could you say such a thing? Nah, you don't want to hear the truth, and that's why you're making a big deal about it. I'm sure that I did the right thing. So I'm telling you, you did not say the right thing. You have no right to get up there in that room and give such sharp mussar, such sharp words of rebuke to the whole congregation over there like you did. And now you can say such a thing. So I walked away and I said, nah, this guy doesn't care about the truth. Can't handle the truth. I'm sure that I'm right. So I found one of my Rebbeim, Shagi Newberger, and I just wanted to make sure I'm right and this guy is wrong. So I went over to him and I said, Rebbe, is it possible that maybe in my drasha by the bris, is it possible that maybe I said something wrong? So he looks at me and his eyes basically pop out of his head. He says, possible? Is it possible that you said something wrong? Who do you think you are? You're a 95-year-old man who's lived a life of righteousness. You get up in front of a room like that and you give everybody a drasha like that? Who do you think you are? I said, maybe I said the wrong thing. Who do you think you are? And I went from one Rebbe to another that was in that room, and basically they all told me the same exact thing. Who do you think you are? My Rosh Hashiva, Rav Aaron Feldman, was not there for the bris. He was out of town at the time. And I came to him a few days after the bris, after I'd been clobbered by every one of my Rebbeim for being totally out of line in the words that I said. And I explained him the situation. And he laughed because he thought to an extent that it was true, we're black-hatted robots, but he said, they're right. You don't have the right to get up there and say such things. You're too young, you're too inexperienced, you don't have enough under your belt yet to say such things. It's not your job to say that, especially when there's a room full of Rebbeim there and other great people. How can you say such a thing? I said, well, what do I do right now? So he told me, you need to write a letter. And you need to write the letter and you need to say in that letter that you apologize for any of the words that you might have said at your son's bris the other day in the dining hall. And if your words offended anybody or hurt anyone's feelings, that was not your intention. And then you need to take that letter and you need to hang it up in the middle of the hallway in the yeshiva where everybody walks past every day. And you have to leave it up there for 1 week to make sure that anybody that was at that bris will see the letter. You have to make sure you sign your name, of course. And that will be the way that you do tshuva. That's the way that you will end up rectifying the mistake that you made. And he said, before you hang up the letter, bring it to me. I'll make sure that it's written exactly right. So I went and I composed a letter. I had to shame myself. And I brought it back to the Rosh Yeshiva, and he went through everything. And he's an author himself, so he's a master of editing, and he edited everything so it was just perfect English, exactly the way that it should be said. And then I hang it up in the hallways of the yeshiva there, right by the sinks and the coat room and the restroom where everybody's walking all day long. And it had to be right up there in the place where you cannot miss it. And people are stopping and they're looking at it. What did he say by his bris? So everyone's like, what did he say? What did he say? Finally, after about 5 days of the note being up, Rav Shagi Newberger comes to me and says, David, if you don't take down that note right now, I cannot say I don't know to another person of what it is that you said by the bris. Please take it down. So I asked Rosh Yeshiva, it's 5 days already. There's so much Lashon Hara that's going around right now. What did I say by the bris? He said, okay, you can take it down. I'm not saying that I'm a chacham, I'm a wise man. But Shlomo Melech is saying that when you hear something that you did wrong, and you know that it's objective and it's coming from somebody who cares about you and loves you and is concerned about your spiritual growth in this world, so then Aveka, you have to love that person and you have to appreciate that person and you have to say thank you. And you should know that every time that I see this person, I speak to this person, I always tell him, Yaakov, if it wouldn't be for you, I don't know where I'd be today. Because it changed my life. Changed the way I give a drasha, changed the way the things that I say in public, changed the way that I act towards people, changed my life. And that's the beauty of teichacha. That is the beauty of accepting rebuke from a person. Because when you take it in the right way, it changes you. And it's really a pasuk in the Torah, in Parshas Kedoshim, which is going to come in many, many months down the road. It says, es amisecha, you should certainly rebuke your fellow Jew. When you see them doing something that is wrong, you see them being involved in activities or in personality or midos or character traits or sinful behavior which is not appropriate for them, your obligation is to certainly rebuke them for what they have done wrong. Now, teichacha in the definition means rebuke. But if you look at the word teichacha, so you will notice that the root of that word is chaf ches. Chaf ches is the word koyach, strength, which means that the reason that I'm giving rebuke to this other person is not because I'm coming and lashing out at them, not because I'm angry with them, not because I'm furious with them and I'm frustrated with them. Then your teichacha, your rebuke, is going to fall on deaf ears. Rather, the teichacha, the rebuke that I'm giving to this person is because I want to show them the koyach. I want to show them the potential and the strength and the beautiful neshama that they have inside of themselves, and they're missing the boat right now. So I come with the right words at the right time when everyone's in the right mood. Like it says in Pirkei Avos, Al tefayis es ha'adam v'shas kasei, don't try to appease a person. Don't try to calm a person down when he's in the height of his anger. Just get out of his way. After he cools off and the fire stops coming out of his nostrils over there, then come and let's try to calm him down and try to deal with him so he'll realize why he doesn't have to get so angry. Don't jump on the person and start rebuking them the moment that you catch them doing the thing that is wrong. They're in the throes of passion, in the throes of the affair of the sin. They just did something that is inappropriate for them to do. Don't start going and giving them rebuke. It will fall on deaf ears. But when you find the right place and the right time and the right tone of voice, and you end up giving them compliments first, as they call the Oreo cookie, you give them compliments. And then you give them the rebuke. And then you end with some more compliments at the end so they don't feel the sting so much. So then your taichacha, the rebuke that you have given them, it's kayach. It is empowering to them. It gives them strength. Kayach is also potential. It shows them the potential that is inside of them. And if they will listen to you and they know that you care about them and you're coming from the right place, so then in fact, they will grow exponentially as a result. Somebody who prides themselves on being a chacham, on being a wise person, looks forward to hearing what somebody else would like to say to them to help them improve their lives. As the Ibn Ezra says over here, since that I recognize the purpose of existence is to make myself better, if your insight or your advice is going to help me become a better person, I love you for that. I cannot stop thanking you for what you have done. Because had you not rebuked me, I would still be going down the wrong pathway over here. And that's really one of the other verses that we have in Mishlei that speaks about accepting the rebuke of somebody else. It says, Oirach l'chaim shomer musar. A pathway to life is the one who will guard musar, who will regard the words of rebuke and correctional advice that someone is giving to us. That's the Orach L'chaim. You will find a pathway to life. What is life? As we said, life is about becoming a better person. You want a pathway that will bring you there? Guard Musar, guard the words of reproof and rebuke and of criticism that somebody else has given you, because you will certainly be able to make sure that you can rectify your faults and go down that derech chaim, that path of life. However, v'oizev taichachas, somebody who abandons the rebuke that is given to them, that person is going to go astray. Says the Vilna Gaon on this pasuk over here. Aval misha sayne, misha yir liyaser atzmai. Aval misha yesh shazel shiyavel archayim. Somebody who is willing to listen to the rebuke and is happy to hear the reproof and is willing to work on themselves. This is the man or the woman that will come to the path of life. The only way that a person is going to walk down the pathway of life is if they are working on correcting themselves. It doesn't happen any other way. It's not a stroll in the park. It's not a nice scenic view. Life is about hard work and effort that a person puts in to correcting the faults that are either there inherently or the faults that I have taken on upon myself over the years, or the mistakes that I made. I must correct them and put them, straighten things out. The only way to get the Orach Chaim, the way of life, says the Vilna Gaon, is if you're willing to turn yourself and work hard in that area. However, if you decide that you're going to abandon the rebuke that other people have given you, Masa, you are going to be someone then that unfortunately will end up going astray. Instead of going in the path of life, says the Vilna Gaon, you will stray from the path. You don't have a teacher, and you have nobody there to reproof you and to rebuke you and to help you through life. since that you despise when people try to inform you of what you should be working on, and you decide to go in the path that you want to go in, that you desire, and like the Ibn Ezra said, a person who's a chacham who thinks that they're wise, they will just choose for themselves any path that they want to. How many times have we done things where we actually hurt other people because of our behavior or our character or our personality, and others come and tell us, they say, really, when you do that, it's really offensive to people. Love it or leave it, baby. That's what they say. Leave me alone. I don't have to listen to what you have to say. Says the Vilna Gaon on the words of Shlomo Melech. You know what that person is really saying? I'm just going to stray from the Orach Chaim, from the path of life. Because the path of life is improvement. The path of life is getting better. The path of Chaim, of being alive that has dveikis, that allows me to get closer to Hashem, is when I'm emulating the ways of Hashem. But someone who doesn't want to hear what is being said to him, someone who doesn't want to try to rectify and change his ways, that person is going to stray from the pathway, and they will just be wandering around, could be all of their life, looking for some kind of sign. Am I on the right road or not on the right road? Which direction am I going in? It's like a person who's taking a drive and they make a wrong turn and the GPS tries to get them to go back to the right way, but they're just not paying attention. Just not paying attention. So they make a left over here and a right over there, and 45 minutes later, they have no idea in the world where they are. This is the life of a person who doesn't accept the reproof and the loving criticism of somebody else in their life. They're just wandering from one place to the next. I remember once I was on a shidduch date many years ago in New York, and this is pre-GPS days, and I did not laud myself as having the best sense of direction. And I was once trying to get back to Baltimore after a date, and I got lost somewhere between Harlem and someplace else. And it was late at night, and I was not feeling very safe at that moment. And I'm driving around in circles, and I had no idea how to get out of there. I finally pull into a gas station, and I was not in the best neighborhood in the entire world. And I quickly ran to one of the attendants over there, and I said, I need to get back to Baltimore now. How do I get there? And he told me where to go, and I made sure that I had it right. I got in the car, and I drove away as fast as I could, and Baruch Hashem, here I am today. A person who just goes in the world, and they're just going around in circles, and they never stop to ask directions. Where am I going? How do I get there? How am I going to reach the goal, the pinnacle of correcting myself and becoming better in this world? Then they're just going to go around and around. It's like, when you go to the airport, back to the airport, the exit, back to the entrance, going around in circles. Why don't you want to go home? I keep taking the wrong street. Says the Vilna Gaon over here. Such a person who doesn't want to hear the Derech Chaim, the Orach Chaim, the path of life, then they are missed, they're tired. They will just stray in this world. And the Malbim writes on this verse, the Malbim says over the following. The Malbim says, Hamusu ye mitzad hechrach, sheyimses hanefesh bal teitei chutz l'gdara. We need Musar in our life. Musar is the ethical teachings of our sages that are supposed to turn us away from the bad path and put us onto the right derech. We need it in order that we will not go out of the boundaries that are no longer safe and inappropriate for ourselves. Everybody has to have boundaries in this world, a place that is safe, a place where you can go to, a place where it is possible that in that arena, in that area, you can still grow and you can still accomplish and you can still achieve. But when a person is going outside the boundaries, when a person is going off the beaten path and they're just wandering around trying to figure things out and they refuse to listen to the words of somebody else, says the Malbim over here, that person has just been Purit's getter. He breaks down the fence. However, somebody who desires, says the Malbim, therefore, if you listen to these words, you will hold yourself back from going down bad pathways. And when you listen to the rebuke of somebody else, they're empowering you. They're showing you what you're made of. They're helping you become better. You will then go in a derech toiv, in a good way, because you want to reach that path. And just to conclude his words, however, he writes, someone who doesn't want to hear the words of rebuke, then he's going to end up straying. Besides the fact that you're not going to go in the good pathway, says the Malbim, you will end up straying into the path of death. There's two pathways in front of us, says the Malbim. There's Chaim, there's life, and there's Maves, there's death. It's not like there's this middle ground over here. Either you're alive and you're growing and you're improving and you're becoming better and you're achieving and you're reaching new standards in your life, or a person is just abandoning that path. Says the Malbim, then you're leaving the pathway of life and you're heading on to the other pathway, the other side of the tracks. Not very good. When you leave the path of life, unfortunately, you end up in another pathway which is not good for the individual. Yaakov Avinu is surrounded by his children. He's imparting the final message of his life to them, the final words that they will always remember to themselves. This is what my great and loving father told me. The wisest man of the generation, the most loving father, who was able to peer deep into my neshama to tell me what to do. And at the moment when he's giving brachas, he gives me rebuke. He tells me what I did wrong to remind me of that shameful experience in my life. He tries to tell me, if you don't ship up, then if you don't shape up, you'll end up shipping out. How can my father tell me that? But you know what? None of the children got angry at their father. On the other hand, all of them accepted the loving rebuke of their father, and they said, Tati, that is the biggest bracha, the greatest blessing in the world. To be told what it is that I need to work on, to be shown the error of my ways, to be informed that perhaps, even though be'einav, in my own eyes, I am a chacham, I am a wise man, but maybe in the eyes of others, I'm really not so wise because I make mistakes. That, said Yaakov Avinu to his children, that's the bracha that I'm going to leave over to you for the rest of your life. For when you will recognize what you need to work on and how you can change with the koyach, with the strength that is inside of you, and you can reveal that great potential, then your whole life will be a bracha. Your whole life will be filled with blessing. There will be abundance of siyata d'shemaya, of heavenly assistance coming your way to help you change the direction, to change the way that you're walking in, to take you off this path and stick you into the path of the Orach Chaim, the pathway of life. And that is a bracha, that is a blessing like no other in history. I could bless you that the rain will fall and your nation will be prosperous and you will grow and you will multiply like the fish of the sea. I could bless you with all of that, says Yaakov Avinu. I could bless you that your enemies will never attack you and you'll win every single battle. I'm Yaakov Avinu. I have the blessings from my father Yitzchak. He had the blessings from Avram. These are powerful words. But in order to be someone that is going to be able to receive blessing, you need to be a person who is a living blessing. And once that you accept upon yourself that there are things and faults that I must work on to make myself better in those areas, that is the way that you become a living bracha. And when you become a living bracha, then I shower down all the blessings, min hashamayim, from the heavens, straight into you. And that's why Yaakov Avinu, although it seems on the surface a little bit peculiar over here, you're blessing your children with teichacha. You're giving them reproof. You're rebuking them for the things that they did, and you're telling them, change your ways. Says Yaakov, yeah, because this is my last message to them. If not now, when? And if I don't leave them with that understanding of themselves, who's going to come along and tell them? A real chaver, a real friend in life, is someone who is willing to tell us what they think we have to work on. Friends who will be mechanef, who will flatter us. Friends who will compliment us. Friends who will tell us how great we are and how wonderful we are. There's nobody like you. Wow, you're the best. It's nice. They're cheerleaders. But the real friendship that comes to a person, or the real more, the real teacher, or the real Rebbe that comes to a person, is the one that will end up pointing out the things that you need to work on, because only then will you become greater. We're so biased. We cannot see our faults. And even if we see them, we refuse to recognize them. And even when we recognize them, we refuse to accept that I really have to work on it. And even when we start trying to work on it, I'll be okay without it. A good chaver, a good friend, comes along and he says, listen, you shouldn't have spoken like that by the bris. Inappropriate. No, you know what you're talking about. I'm telling you. Go ask any of your rebbeim. They'll tell you. Inappropriate. And it will change your life. You become a different person. And then everybody you come in contact with, they are able to relish in the changes that you made, because you impact your own life, you impact their lives as well. Says Yaakov Avinu, you deserve some mussar and rebuke at the end of my life, because you're a leader of Klal Yisrael. You will have nations that come from you. You'll have offspring, generations of the Jewish people. We have to correct the DNA right now inside. So change. Become better. Elevate yourself. Listen to what I said. Reuven doesn't complain. Shimon and Levi don't complain to their father when he gives them rebuke over there. They listen attentively. Okay, Tanti. We'll give you a comfort as you're leaving this world. We'll take your words to heart. We will change. That's a bracha, because it will make your life into a bracha, and you will be a living blessing. Only, what's bracha? It's from the lashon of brecha. Brecha is overflowing waters that never cease. Bracha is when something inside of you is overflowing and it never ceases. There's an energy, there's a flow, there is a power, there's a burst, there's a surge. A person who is constantly working on themselves and changing and growing, that is a bracha. There is a never-ending surge of energy, of goodness, of neshama that is being actualized. And that is the ultimate bracha, the ultimate blessing that a person has in life. I want to leave you with a maisa, with a story, where we can see that no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are, no matter where you are holding in life, if a person will take the words of rebuke that are given over with all somebody's heart, it can be transforming. There is a very special kiruv program in Eretz Yisrael called Arachim. And Arachim has been around, who knows, maybe 30 years already, maybe more. And they go around to all of the different communities in the land of Israel where there are, unfortunately, many Chilonim, many secular Jews living in Eretz Yisrael. They don't even know how to say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And they set up shop in one of these towns, very often in Tel Aviv. and they make big Shabbatones. They advertise and they subsidize, and they advertise an amazing 2-day Shabbos experience, great food, great company, stimulating lectures, Havdalah with music, parties, the whole thing. And they get hundreds and hundreds of secular Israelis interested in seeing a little bit what it means to have some more religion in their life, to come to these Shabbatones. The end of the Shabbaton is usually they call up recent Balei Tshuva to stand in front of the audience and to, entertain, but to inspire the audience with their personal tale and story, how it is that they went from being secular to becoming religious, keeping Shabbos, eating kosher, sending their children off to Jewish schools, and they come and they inspire the crowd. So it comes the final speech over here in the Arachim seminar, and this is the stories of return, how these Israelis became Balei Tshuva. And every family that was sitting there in their groups of the families that recently became observant, they chose their representative to go and stand up and tell over the story of the family. So one by one, the families get up and they start telling the stories. And the final speaker is a young father, dark olive skin, jet black hair. And although he tried to come up quite humbly and unassuming, it was clear to everybody in this crowd, this is a very successful young businessman. And he stands up and he says over the following words. My name is Eli, Ani Eli. And believe me, standing in front of you today at an Arachim seminar was the farthest thing in my mind several months ago. My wife and I live in a beautiful villa in Tel Aviv. We have one son, 9 years old. His name is Yair, very rambunctious, lively child. And we have a sweet little daughter, Leora, 5 years old. About 9 months ago, he says, our son Yair walks into the house one day, and he's wearing a kippah. And we said, Yair, you're in our house. We live in Tel Aviv. There is no religion in this house. Why are you wearing a kippah? And he said, I was walking home and I saw this kippah on the street. I liked the way that it looked. I put it on my head. It fits just fine. I'm interested. I think I'll start wearing a kippah. We told him we don't approve. We don't wear yarmulkes in this house, kippot in this house. To no avail. He's a stubborn kid, this boy. Suddenly he comes home and he starts telling us, there's such a thing called kashrut. We're supposed to eat kosher food. Meat and milk, you don't mix together. You have to go to the special butcher. We said, what are you talking about, Jair? This house doesn't have kashrut. This house doesn't have kippot. What are you talking about? And suddenly we start getting calls from his teachers. This boy was teacher's pet of the century. And suddenly he's getting in arguments with his teachers in school, questioning them about their irreligious ways. And why don't they believe in this? And why don't they believe in that? And do they know what God is? And they know why the Jewish people live in the land of Israel? And he's on the verge of getting sent out of his kicked out of his school. And every day, every night, there's another argument. Why don't we do this? And why don't we do this and this and that? And what does it mean to be Jewish? And he's reading books. And he starts telling us he's going to start keeping kosher. And then he drops the bomb. He's even thinking that he's going to start keeping Shabbat. Wow, that's already. Now you're crossing the line big time, Yair. One night after school, Yair comes home. And his mother has made his favorite dish. Spicy Mexican food. And he comes and sits down at the table, and his mother's so proud. She made him his favorite dish. She puts it on a plate. She puts it in front of him. And Yair is sitting there. He said, no, Tochel, eat. No, Tochel, eat. Your mother made it. She slaved in the kitchen. Your favorite meal, eat. So he turns to me and my wife and he says, Zelo kosher. this food is not kosher. You cooked out of pots where there's tray food, there's not kosher food inside of it. I'm sorry, I cannot eat your food tonight. Well, that's all that I had to hear. At that moment, I grabbed my son by his shirt and I dragged him outside. At this moment, this father, Eli, the young, successful businessman over here, he starts sobbing. And he says, I took my son out onto the porch. And I said to him, how dare you not eat your mother's food? How dare you not eat your mother's food? You see how hard she worked. And he said, I feel so bad. And the father's crying now. He's telling his story. I started slapping my son and beating my son. How dare you not eat her food? What are you doing? You're ruining our family. And I'm waiting for my son to start crying. I'm waiting for him to break. But he's looking at me with this look of defiance in his eyes. And I said, what's the matter with you? Doesn't this hurt? I'm hitting you, I'm slapping you, doesn't it hurt? And my son looks at me. And with total composure, he looks deep into my eyes and he says, the only thing that hurts me is that you and Ima don't want to do anything religious in your life. And that you and Ima will eat not kosher food and you're not going to keep Shabbat. And you're getting angry at me because I want to keep Shabbat and I want to keep kosher and I wanted to become a better Jew. That's the only thing that hurts me right now, not your slaps and your hits. At that moment, Eli said, I was so overwhelmed with my son's sincerity and purity. I broke down and I started crying. And I hugged my son and I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He looks down from the stage and he says, Yair, come here. Father and son embrace. The father, through his tears and through his sobbing, he is saying, I'm happy to announce that today we have a kosher home. Today we keep Shabbat. And we are learning more and more Torah every single day. Someone who mocks the purpose of creation, which is to grow and to improve and to become a better person and to cleave to Hashem, you give them rebuke, they will despise you, they will hate you, they don't want to hear it. Chacham be'einav, I know it all already, sir. I don't need your input into life. I know what to do. But a chacham, a wise person, someone who understands the secret of growth and of life and self-perfection, of elevating oneself, who understands that the greatest bracha that a person can have in life is when they know what it is to work on, they have to work on to become a better person. Who aveka, that person will love you. They will love you, they will hug you, they will grow with you. And for the rest of your life, they will thank you for the honesty, for the sincerity, for the rebuke, for the criticism, for the loving words that you shared with them. Because of you, they're able to change. And because of you, they're able to grow. And because of you, they're able to live a life of bracha. And that is the message that Yaakov leaves over to his children. That if you want bracha, that bracha is up to you. That means everybody can have a life of bracha. If only we're working, if only we are trying, if only we are growing, if only we are changing, if only we're moving in the orach chaim, in the pathway of life. If you do, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will shower down upon you all of the brachas that he has in store. Chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen ourselves to find the courage within to truly live a life of bracha. Have a wonderful night, everyone.